heard of PFA, Psychological First Aid? Okay, let's just play with the names. First aid, what is first aid? So if we see someone collapse or unconscious, a lot of us are trained for basic life support, so we'll go and give some chest compression or rescue breaths. Or when we go for a hike or something, we will always carry a first aid box with some gauze or some bandage, antiseptics, and so on. So that's first aid. So what's psychology? So it's something to do with our mental health. So when we put them together, we get something like mental first aid or something.
Thanks, Jessica. So good to be able to sit down, move from the other place, come back to my favorite chair for 2020 and 2021. So I hope that you have some ideas for your go back. Now we are at PFA, and so for PFA, PFA is another set of tools that many people around the world, as well as organizations, are now discovering how important this tool is. So both private sector as well as governmental has begun to look at the importance of PFA, the role PFA plays in helping community as well as nations recover from disasters, especially during disasters. PFA is a broad thing. It can be utilized by anyone who is trained to assist anyone in need. Okay, let me explain a little bit about PFA. Tonight, it is very clear that we cannot do a PFA training because time is not adequate. But we can share in terms of the importance, the principles, and give some understanding. And maybe my prayer, as well as many others in the organizing committee, felt that would provoke your interest to pursue getting trained somewhere as soon as possible. So PFA, what exactly is PFA? Many years ago, I thought that PFA I have nothing to do with PFA because those are specialized experts, and my immediate thought was that only psychiatrists and psychologists are people who qualify to get involved in this. But I was wrong. Later, the experts tell me PFA is actually a way whereby support is given to affected community. So it's the Red Cross shares with us and train some of us, and we felt that yeah, it makes sense because a lot of people may not have access to professional mental health services in the locations where disaster first occur, and you probably are going to arrive there earlier than all the other helps. So what can we do in a situation like that? So PFA, Psychological First Aid, it is emotional and practical support. It is designed to reduce distress among the people, to help the affected people to adapt to the situation, and so that they can cope better and they can get on the path of recovery. The Red Cross says that it is a humane, supportive response to a fellow human being who is suffering and may need support or help. So basically, it sounds like a very very logical kind of a thing to do, right? Someone who is in great distress, you are just providing them some emotional and practical help for them to come out from that particular situation. So because of the the terminologies to those who have not been exposed to it, sometimes we get confused, because the truth is PFA is actually evolving. PFA training modules are actually evolved and continue to evolve in their development. The original model, as I begin to do research on it, I realized that the original model came out in the earlier years, and when they begin to implement it in some places, they found that sometimes it creates more harm than help, because the earlier years approach is taking a person through the trauma again, and person goes through an incident, and person may not be ready for it and all that. So sometimes a person react very violently and unpredictably. So the WHO, together with the experts on mental health services, UNICEF, and all the various agencies begin to look at how to improve. So they have come up with, the Red Cross also is involved in it, together with universities and the academicians and the various science, mental health science people begin to look at more better way to help people who are affected because of disaster. So what today we have is an evolved model. And the evolved model basically have different elements that they focus on in their training. There are actually quite a lot of skills that is required for a person to say that I have done a PFA training and I can begin the process of helping those who have been hurt or those who are under distress in emergency situation. So, because of that, course itself is quite elaborate. Tonight, I will just be sharing the important elements, 4 important elements of this PFA. And these are the gold standards. These are the standards that are taught by various schools. They always come back to similar things when it comes to PFA. First of all, I want to say PFA is not given to everyone when you go into disaster zone, because not everyone may need that kind of assistance, right? Like if you go to let's say an incident has occurred, not everyone may need first aid, basic first aid, so that is the situation. So, but there will be those who may need it. So those who need it, these are the 4 important elements to remember. But this by no means say that we should just go out and there's so much more to learn. So I just want to share that, and as a preamble to sharing these thoughts. The Red Cross basically says that the idea is to establish trust with people, because we are outsiders. We are going to someone who may be who may not know us at all. So a person going through a terrible experience may not trust outsiders. So there are things that we have to be mindful of, how we carry ourselves about, and how we approach in helping them. The most important thing that they say in the Red Cross, you will hear it again and again. They say active listening. There's a phrase for it: active listening, or listen attentively. So again, for many people, when they first hear PFA, I'm going to go for training as PFA, an immediate thought is sometimes our friends will tell, wow, you are going to be a professional counselor, is it? No, actually, it's more like a professional listener who don't get paid. So active listening. So what does active listening means? So I wrote in my notes, there were two trainers who have remarkable influence in the course of me coming to know PFA. So for me, I'm not a specialist in PFA, but because at the point when IDRN are looking at how the what is cutting edge and how we can provide more effective services to the various fields, I thought that it was important that key decision and policy makers need to look at this whole thing. And that's why Inban and myself, we discussed a lot about it, and then we got into it. And then in the organizations, there are different ones who are very, very gifted in PFA. Sharon Houdini is one of them, who is very passionate about this whole area of PFA, based in Jakarta. She and her husband are helping in IDRN, and they anchor the base there, the LCC there. And she went further than most of us in terms of completing her formal studies and developing a more easier training module. But tonight I want to say that active listening is an important part of the PFA. What does active listening means? Active listening means that besides just paying attention, we also need to be these Red Cross says there are 3 L's in it. They broke it down, and some trainer says that you need to be situationally aware. Look at the person. You need to have eye contact. You know, you need to you of course look is not just that, but looking at also be aware of what is around in that particular area. So looking at the person, observing the person, observing what is around. So that is part of active listening. The other one is, of course, to try to gather as much information as possible to understand what the other person have gone through. And that involves listening. And many times to listen to someone who may not be ready to share in a coherent way sometimes. So it's quite challenging. It requires for us to understand that to be able to actively listen to a person, you may need to develop a relationship for long term. So meaning that support relationship. We are talking about support relationship. So meaning that you also need to be available to this person. Okay, this person may not be someone who will open up to you in 10 minutes or within half an hour. So sometimes it requires for us to just hang around and just make sure that the person is safe and don't do something harmful to that person, and just making sure that the person know that you are there and you are there available to help this person if the person will let you. So active listening, and of course the third L that the Red Cross refers to is linking. Sometimes a person may require you to just connect the person to the right person, and it will solve the problem for everyone. What do I mean by that? Like if you go into a situation whereby a mother have lost the child in a disaster, somehow becomes separated from the child, the mother will be very distraught. The child may be very distraught, you know. So and often this is no amount of words of comfort can help. But the moment you can link up the person to get the family together again, oh, everything is soft, you know. everything is solved, right? And linking also refer to sometimes to more professional help. So therefore, sometimes it's good to have assortment of help resources available in our area. So people like, there may be after a disaster for months and months, some people are overlooked in disasters, and during disasters, unfortunately, it is those who are broken inside that often get overlooked, especially if they don't manifest any emotions and they're quiet about it. And this you may have to refer and link them to someone who can be able to do to help them in a more effective way. So PFA basically look at very broad areas, but these are the areas where we want to provide emotional and practical support. So it doesn't mean that we do everything for them. So we don't want to create dependency, but we want to help them get on the road of, on the path of recovery. So, so this is the thing. So we need to, number one, stay close to this person, meaning that available. Meaning if you don't stay in that particular area that you are going in, have your contact number available in case they need to contact someone. And the world is often changing. People come, sometimes volunteers come and volunteers go, but phone number you can always contact again, right? So this is something that you can, and always usually in a disaster zone, we try to remain there and come back again. And especially if you are there early, most of you who are in the medical field, you will have plenty of opportunity to be on emergency medical response. So, so this is an area where only you will make a lot of difference. And it is, there are some trainers, some of the experts are telling us that in psychological stress, a person sometimes the damage can be very, very deep and have long-lasting scars, especially if a person comes to a conclusion that no one cares and no one, it won't change, and things will not get better. So, so actually, Dr. Fred told one of our trainers, he actually says it is ideal if you go in within the first 48 hours, because the memories are still fresh and there is a lot of room for intervention and speaking and challenging some of these things, and recovery is much, much better. So these are some thoughts. Important element, number one is stay close, meaning being available to that person. Number two is active listening. And then in active listening, you need to accept feelings of people, accept people's emotion, accept the affected person's emotion. We cannot tell a person, one of the mistakes that some people make, and including me myself, is sometimes we tell people who are distressed, don't cry. You know, we tell people don't cry, and the person in the midst of trying to establish trust and being able to understand a person. So so accept people's feeling, keep an open mind to what is being said, and accept how they sometimes interpret it. It may not be right, but accept it nevertheless. Don't judge people during this time, and above all, keep confidential. You know, some of the things that people may say and share, except for purpose of your reporting. So I think doctors, you all know that confidential is is part of the ethics. So accept feelings. This is the third thing. And then number four is provide general care and practical help. So general care can be simple things. Just assist the person, but don't overdo things for people, but help them so that they don't fall into the situation where they are completely fragile and nothing will happen until you come and do something for them. So do you know what I mean? So yes, so we don't want to do that, but we want to be able to assist them on their road of recovery. So these are the four important elements in the Red Cross approach. Dr. Fred Toke, he phrased it differently. He called it SAFE, the acronym SAFE. Basically, he SAVE, S-A-V-E, S-A-V-E. S for stabilize. Okay, if a person is emotionally very disturbed, psychologically, affected because of this situation, stabilize the person and then assess this situation, validate the person and the experience, engage the person. So in these three things, again, this is what one page in the training of 2 days training. There are many things mentioned, but I thought that I just want to highlight this, and then we can I want to share a few things of how not to do it for majority of us. Granted that some of you have undergone PFA training and some of you are trained professionals. So please excuse those of us who are not. We are just new to it. So and many of us are from the volunteers from churches, and we come in it with our understanding of faith, and we come with our experience that oftentimes is not necessarily the same as communities that are impacted by disasters. So we sometimes we are total foreigners coming into a situation, have no understanding of the situation. So because of that, please understand that we are barely scratching the surface tonight. But I felt that it was important for me to mention that certain things require us to relook at our approach and require us to accept the with the grace that God gives to us, that we need further training. We need to polish up our skills, because in our heart, we want to do better. We want to serve the community. We want to be of better service and agents of change for the world, a better world. So when Dr. Toke was sharing this and was teaching this, a number of things that he said that in the point of validating a person's feelings, a person's emotion, similar to what Red Cross say, accept people's feelings. He says, sometimes we deny, and we say things like, I know how you feel. I know how you feel, I don't know how we can know how they feel, how an affected person feels in a disaster, because some of the experiences and seeing some of the things that happen are just so terrible, right? So terrible. And then there are times when people say time heals all wounds to a person who this is just fresh, just fresh. I remember after the earthquake in Sabah, and I was working with a bunch of people in Sabah, and reports were coming back to us from rapid assessment teams working in different kampongs, and they were saying that even when it rains, the kampong's children start to cry. You know, they start to cry. And they start to cry because they remember when it rained, the deadfalls they were trapped because of the tremors from the earthquake will begin to cause mudslides, and the bridges and the roads and all those will come, and the flooding and all that. So it causes such a emotional impact upon that particular community. So these are some of the things we won't know unless we were there. And even that, it is very difficult to say everyone experienced the same thing. No. So I think certain things we should not say, and we should learn to, if I may use the phrase, bite our tongue sometimes. So listening is better than talking in many of these circumstances. Some people say you must go on with your life. And some of the phrases are repeated by humanitarians in different places. You can always find someone worse off than you yourself. And some of the things say, you must focus on your precious memories. You know, to a person who is hurting and in distress, not a good thing to say. It is better to have loved and lost than never to have loved at all. Can you imagine people say these things? Maybe we should list out the top 100 lines that we should not say. You know, it'd be very interesting. It is, you will get over this. And of course, be strong. Hey, be strong, you know. And so these are some of the things that doesn't help the situation. So many times we are at wit's end because in a psychological traumatic experience, many of the people experience shock, and then they are in emotional distress. And we really don't know what to say. And sometimes when we really don't know what to say, just being together with them and being there, quiet first, be calm, don't cry along and don't scream like them as well. Be calm, and assure them, I'm here. I'm so sorry this has happened to you. I'm very sorry, you know, but I'm here. And of course, we cannot solve all their problem, but I'm here. You know, I'm here with you. And saying things like, I'm so sorry, it's harder than most people think. And sometimes when we don't have the answers, it's, I really don't know, but I will check and come back to you. This is even helpful and more realistic. But the worst things we can say is to use God's name in vain. So be very careful, because some people will say things like, it must be his or her time. You know, I don't think that's a good thing to say. And then have you ever heard people say, God must have needed her more than you did? What a terrible thing to, I mean, we laugh because we also don't know how to react, you know. Sometimes it's our coping mechanism. We laugh over this, you know, because it is such a cruel thing to say, right? So, and then some people say these words, God never gives us more than we can handle. I think maybe not for all circumstances we say things like this, you know. If it's a small thing, yeah. But if it's a very, very significant thing, be careful what we say in God's name. Some people say it is God's will. That's why it happens. I remember when I responded to the Kelantan flood, in some kampongs, the people were so upset because there were communities there who say their houses were destroyed and everything was destroyed because it is God's will for them, they to experience that. And this community will not help them. So it's, I think they don't really understand God. They misrepresent God and have misused God's name. So these are things that we have to be very careful, in the things that we say. So when we look at active listening, sometimes active listening, when we listen to a person, you need to maybe ask the person to clarify what they are saying. Because sometimes it's good to say that, maybe ask them, what do you mean by saying this? I'm not sure I understand you, what you meant when you said this. So these are things that you go in active listening. So you encourage a person to begin to speak and share and articulate, but you don't shut the person, don't censor, and don't tell the person what to say. Yeah. So and also ability to summarize some of the things that they are saying will help them to process further in their step of recovery. So in actual PFA training, there are a lot of scenarios, role plays, situation and principles, and you will practice lots of it. And when I was looking over our material, when Dr. Grace, when I begin to prepare for it, I thought I will be speaking for 4 weeks, then I realized, oh no, it's only for one night, one session. I said, okay, what do I chop out? So anyway, I thought that these are the basic things I wanted to share tonight. The 4 elements being available to the person. The Red Cross says stay close, being close to the community, being close to the affected person. Hand them a card, call, say, I'm here, I'm available. Or if you're working and you are staying in that particular community, then they will know where you are and you are readily available. Active listening in all your thing, the interaction with this person, sit, keep a good eye contact, pay attention to the person, don't belittle what they share, and accept their feelings, accept their emotions, and then of course be of practical help. So this is part of the PFA. When you say you're providing PFA to a person, so it doesn't mean that you are labeling them, you are profiling them psychologically. No, we are not doing that. We are not doing professional counseling or anything like that. But this is basically to help them stabilize from the extreme feelings to come to a place where they can begin to get on the journey, the road to recovery. So one of the most encouraging things that we hear from various people working in PFA fields is that God has made people super resilient and people can come back. And especially those who have worked with this community and also ministered to this particular community, we hear even wonderful stories in the whole process. So I guess
Pastor, we have another 3 more minutes.
3 more minutes.
Yeah.
Maybe Inban and Dr. Mylene, would you want to add in, share some thoughts?
Pastor, there's a question. How about including evangelism or like saying God is in control to them in grief or something like that?
At this stage, in a case of a person who is going through a traumatic kind of situation, I would say no, it's not the right time yet. It is not a right time. So because a person, usually in a case of trauma like this, you want the person to come to a place where they are stabilized. I think everything has its timing.
Thank you, Pastor. I think the time is up.
Can we extend a little bit? If we could, think maybe Inban and Doc Mylene have some life experiences from Indonesia and Philippines that they can share that will be helpful.
Sure, probably 5 minutes more.
Okay, very quick one. I'll just do it in 1 minute. I think it is not the context of a vacuum. It comes as what Darren is sharing is in the area of relationship. When you descend into the village, many of them have lost everything. The very land that they had been feeding on turns hostile, and suddenly they have lost everything. I've seen people who just tear out in the sun or into the stars, and they don't know what to do the next step. And we are not going there to give a counseling or directing what to do, but just to sit with them. I've ever sat with a woman for half an hour and we never spoke a word. And then finally I said, "How are you doing? Are you fed well?" and all that. And she said, "Yeah, I'm okay. People are giving me a lot of attention. I get all the necessary food." But she said, "I just lost my husband. I lost my house and all my cattle. I don't know what to go back to, you know." And we cannot give cliche answers, you know what I mean? Or just say, "Oh, don't worry, everything will be all right," because everything is not going to be all right. If you suddenly go back to your home and suddenly you lose everything and you have absolutely zero. So sometimes you need to really recognize that there's no answer to many of this, but just to sit with them. And so it's very practical, it's doable. Anybody, the biggest challenge to all of us in this context is to accept people as we talked about, and that active listening, and at the same time avail yourself. If you're in a hurry, you know, with the agenda and you say, "Okay, I give you 5 minutes," you don't talk, "Okay, that's it, I have no time, I've got to move on." That's not the way, but you need to be able to build a relationship and the rapport. So for me, the most important thing in PFA is relationship, not just do what you have to do, unload and go away. That's my sharing and experience in Indonesia. Maybe Moylin wants to say something.
Hello, can you hear me? Okay. Hello from Philippines. I'd like to share that PFA has been very important and very crucial, especially for those who have gone through so much disaster. And if this, as we see, it's the ideal is 48 to 72 hours. And if we do not see this and we're not sensitive to these people who have gone through this kind of trauma or disaster, and if it's not dealt with, it can go into what we call PTSD, post-traumatic stress disorder, or other kinds of psychological problems. They couldn't sleep, they couldn't eat, and everything, and going into severe depression. So when we come in and into a disaster area and avail ourselves, it would be good to really assess, as what we was seen or shared, we assess and stabilize. And I say hands are very good, no way to comfort, like just showing your smile. I ask always to God, "Lord, anoint my smile," that when they see me, they will just feel refreshed. And then let your hands be comforting hands, healing hands, but it's always important to ask permission if it's okay to touch and the person. And one more thing I'd like to share is about just breathing. Sometimes they forget breathing, like they're so much into panic state. So it's very good to breathe deeply. We do this 4, 7, 8. Breathe slowly, 4, and then hold 7 seconds, and then like that. So 8 seconds. So there's so much, but yeah, I just tell one situation in Cagayan de Oro, as I really witnessed this. There's this person who went amok and was really having his gun and trying to shoot people because he has his whole family died. And this is where which like the social welfare should have seen much, no, like we could have triaged this person that he's so much into all this all things going on mentally inside, and he's not able to debrief. So what's important with PFA is we can debrief, remove, release, take time to release. So it's important to have a good listening ears. That's all.
Thanks, Doc Mylene and Inban. I would say that like UNICEF, I have also been actively encouraging training for people who work with children as well, because they take a lot more hurdles to open up. And also there are guidelines. When you do PFA, please do it 2 by 2. You don't do it alone. If you are doing critical incident debrief, please have experienced PFA trainers or PFA provider along, because of unknown variables. You have people in your team that have not been properly evaluated, and some incidences are just too much to handle. So I hope that answers some of it. But the gist of what I want to say tonight, I want to emphasize is we should get just PFA training by itself for you to really benefit from it. So this is something that is very important for everyone, so that we can become more sensitive and more sensible as we relate to the hurting world. So thank you so much for your kind attention, everyone, and your participation tonight. I hope that this has been helpful.